You know, some moments in history just pivot on the actions of a few key people. In the early 1990s, South Africa was right there, on a knife's edge between a peaceful future and a brutal civil war. And this is the story of that moment, and of the two leaders at the very heart of it all, Chris Hani and Nelson Mandela. Just listen to those words from Nelson Mandela. He broadcast that to a nation just holding its breath. And remember, he wasn't even president yet. But he was speaking to a country absolutely torn apart by grief and rage, trying to pull it back from the brink after one single calculated act of violence. And this is the man at the center of that storm, Chris Hani, a hero to millions of people, a commander, a scholar, and by 1993, the second most popular leader in the entire country. His murder on April 10th wasn't random at all. It was like a match thrown into a powder keg, specifically designed to spark a racial war and just destroy any hope for a democratic future. So to really get why Hani's death had such a seismic impact, we have to understand the man himself. His life story is really the story of the struggle, and it started long, long before he ever picked up a weapon. I mean, look at this. Hani was just brilliant from a young age. This timeline shows his incredible rise, joining the ANC Youth League when he's just 15, finishing his studies at a top school like Lovedale by 16, and then graduating from the legendary Fort Hare University by 19. And his focus, Latin and English literature, it gives you a real glimpse into the mind of the man who'd become a revolutionary leader. And his political path wasn't shaped by just one thing. It came from all over. It was in his blood, you know? His father was in the ANC, his uncle in the Communist Party. It was nurtured at school, where his teachers were actively fighting against the state's racist education policies. And then it was sharpened at university, where he was studying Marxism with giants like Govan Mbeki. And all this leads to this central, fascinating duality of Chris Hani. He was a deep intellectual, a man of letters, but also a man who truly believed that the armed struggle was necessary to win freedom. And this just lays out his complexity perfectly. On one hand, you've got the scholar, a guy reading Greek classics who, even during military training in the Soviet Union, made time for ballet and Russian literature. And then, on the other hand, you have the soldier, the guy who joined the ANC's armed wing, Umkhonto we Sizwe, which means Spear of the Nation, or MK for short, the same year he graduated, and then rose all the way up the ranks to become its chief of staff. Yeah, and this picture, this really captures that soldier persona. He wasn't some figurehead sitting in an office. He was a commander known for his incredible physical and moral courage, and he was deeply, deeply respected by the soldiers he led on the ground. So you take that intellect, you add that courage, and it's no wonder he became so incredibly popular. By the early 90s, he was a hero, especially to young activists who saw him as the true voice of the struggle. He wasn't just another politician. He was an icon, second only to Mandela himself. Which brings us right back to that terrible day in April 1993. See, with his immense popularity, Hani was absolutely crucial in convincing the more militant youth to actually support the peace negotiations. So taking him out, it wasn't just about killing a man. It was about killing the entire peace process. The facts of what happened, they're just stark. A right-wing extremist, Janus Walush, backed by a politician from the Conservative Party, shot Hani in his own driveway. The motive was terrifyingly clear: push the country into a full-blown race war so that any transition to democracy would be totally impossible. And this quote from Alex Mashillo, wow, it just captures the feeling on the ground perfectly. For so many people, this wasn't just a murder. It felt like a declaration of war. The anger was immediate. And it was explosive. And that anger didn't stay quiet for long. It just exploded onto the streets. The entire country was engulfed in protests. Decades of pent-up pain and frustration just erupted. And for a few terrifying days, it looks like the assassins might get exactly what they wanted. The fallout was catastrophic. I mean, everything just stopped. The incredibly delicate negotiations that were building a new South Africa piece by piece, they came to a dead halt. The entire future of the nation was just hanging in the balance. It's right here, in this moment of pure chaos, with the country staring into the abyss, that Nelson Mandela stepped forward. This was maybe his most defining test of leadership, and it was before he was even officially president. I mean, really think about how significant this was. The official government was pretty much paralyzed. So Mandela goes on national television, the state broadcaster, and speaks directly to the nation. It was such a powerful signal
basically a de facto assumption of leadership from the only person who could possibly navigate this crisis. And listen to how he begins. He doesn't just speak to his supporters. He reaches out to every single South African, black and white. This was more than a plea. It was a masterclass in building a nation in the middle of a crisis. He framed Hani's murder not as a black loss, but as a national loss, a crime against everyone in the country.
And here, he confronts the danger head-on. He brings up the horrifying specter of Angola's civil war, making the stakes crystal clear for everyone. He called for discipline, honoring Haqqani, who he called a disciplined soldier, by not reacting with the very violence the killers were hoping for. And you know what? It worked. His appeal for calm, for unity, for discipline, it resonated across the country. He somehow managed to channel all of that grief and all of that rage away from a civil war and back toward the goal of a negotiated democracy.
So what happens next is one of those incredible, unbelievable ironies of history. The very act designed to completely destroy the peace process actually ended up saving it.
The crisis was just so huge, it forced everyone's hand. The political deadlock that had been going on for ages was finally broken. Mandela and the ANC demanded, with this newfound urgency, a firm date for the elections. And the result? April 27, 1994 was set in stone. Chris Hani's murder, tragically, paradoxically, ended up speeding up the very democracy he died fighting for.
But let's never forget what and who was lost in all of this. This number, man, it says everything. In the ANC's first internal elections after being unbanned, Hani got a staggering 95% of the vote. It's just a stark reminder of his incredible popularity and the kind of leader South Africa lost that day. And that, of course, brings us to the huge, unanswerable what if. It's the question that historians and South Africans have debated ever since. What if that day in April had just gone differently? Think about it. With his popularity, his charisma, his commitment to socialist ideals, would Chris Hani have become South Africa's second democratic president instead of Thabo Mbeki? And if he had, how would a President Hani have changed the nation's path? It's a profound question about a chapter of history that was never written, and a powerful reminder that the fate of an entire nation can truly turn on a single day.